Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And Charles has coronavirus.
I can't believe this. On Wednesday, we received the shocking news from Clarence House that the Prince of Wales has tested positive for coronavirus. He has been displaying mild symptoms but otherwise remains in good health and has been working from home throughout the last few days as usual.
Whatever that means when you're a royal. But what was reassuring to me was that the Duchess of Cornwall has also been tested but does not have the virus. In accordance with government and medical advice, the Prince and the Duchess are now self-isolating at home in Scotland.
I was so shocked by this. I was about to have a shower and I got the push notification and I had to run in to Tom, who's working from home with me at the moment, and say, oh my God, Tom, Charles has the virus. And we were flabbergasted, weren't we? I think your first question was, what about Camilla?
I was very worried for Camilla and relieved that she didn't have it. But, I mean, Charles is 71, so it's pretty concerning that he has it. The tests apparently were carried out by the NHS in Aberdeenshire, where they met the criteria required for testing. So that means he was showing symptoms. There's been a lot of debate because it seems like there are a lot of celebrities and wealthy people who are getting tested without having symptoms, which is understandably making a lot of people very angry when frontline health workers can't get the test themselves.
Yeah, so Clarence House obviously made sure to note that in their statement. But, like, I think if you're pissed off about a literal prince getting a test, I think what you're pissed off about is the entire concept of the monarchy.
Yeah, the whole point of it is that these people get treatment that other people don't.
Simply by an accident of birth. But I think what was quite frightening to a lot of people in the statement was that they said it is not possible to ascertain from whom the prince caught the virus owing to the high number of engagements he carried out in his public role during recent weeks.
Because that works both ways. You're not able to tell who gave it to him, but also if you met that many people, you're not able to tell who he gave it to.
Yeah, and obviously we saw him being so careful with his namaste greetings rather than handshakes, but he was still carrying out a lot of public engagements a week or a few weeks into the time when lots of other countries were imposing much stricter guidelines on social distancing. So I think the royals in general, people were very surprised to see them still doing so much work, particularly with Charles and the Queen, who are of advanced age.
Yeah, almost doing more work than they would normally be doing.
But a source told the Mail that Charles and Camilla remained in good spirits. The prince was up and about and not bedridden. Medical advice is that it is unlikely to escalate into a more serious case, but like he's still 71, so it's still concerning.
Yeah, it is. It's concerning. I think that they are also trying to run a bit of a narrative that, yes, he has coronavirus, but he's a strong man, he will be a strong king, and he can still walk around and get on the phone even with coronavirus. But maybe he should just be taking a rest.
The sources also noted that Charles had spoken to Prince William and Prince Harry and the Queen, which, I mean, you'd think he would obviously do that, but I guess to point that out so that we didn't have all these stories like, did Prince Harry learn his dad had the virus from watching the news or something?
Yeah. And I think, like, over the last year, we have maybe come to learn that you shouldn't always assume that these people just talk to each other on a daily basis.
But speaking of the Queen, this is where I think it gets particularly interesting. So after the news came out that Charles had tested positive, a Buckingham Palace spokesman said, Her Majesty the Queen remains in good health. The Queen last saw the Prince of Wales briefly on the morning of March 12 and is following all the appropriate advice with regard to her welfare. But the big thing, for us anyway, is that Buckingham Palace would not comment at the time, so this was on Wednesday, on whether the Queen had been tested for coronavirus. And then on Friday, we learned that Boris Johnson has also tested positive for the virus. and they had the palace spokesman trot out pretty much the same statement again. Her Majesty the Queen remains in good health. The Queen last saw the Prime Minister on March 11th and is following all the appropriate advice with regards to her welfare. We will not be commenting further, which means they would not comment on whether she has been tested. What is going on?
I do not believe that she hasn't been tested for coronavirus, given that members of her family have it, that the Prime Minister has it. You'd think that she would be getting tested every half an hour. So for the palace not to be talking about any kind of testing or commenting on the results of testing, what are they hiding?
I think it's so strange that there hasn't been more of a backlash around this, because when the news about Charles came out and then the news about Boris, there was all this speculation about like who they may have passed it on to. We got all these graphs in the papers of like all of Charles's movements on particular days and where he was in London and who he might have met and all this. But I think the real question is, has the Queen been tested?
Yeah.
And why won't they say whether she has or not? They might think that people would fly into a total blind panic if they thought that something was going to happen to the Queen, that maybe they see her role as a unifying figure as so important that any concerns about her health might have a hugely debilitating effect on the British public. But not talking about it is also kind of alarming.
Especially as they were hyping this idea of a televised address from the Queen to the public at the right moment.
Just last weekend we heard it was coming soon.
Yeah, and I mean now her son, the future king, has coronavirus. The Prime Minister has coronavirus. The country has gone into lockdown. We're only allowed out to go for one bit of exercise a day and to pop to the shops. So why isn't the Queen telling us that, we're all in this together, it'll be okay? I think probably because she can't get through 3 minutes without coughing.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate about whether she has it or not. I just think she's suspiciously quiet at the moment. So far, we've only had one public statement from her and one very amusing photo, which we will get onto in a minute. But I think first, it's so interesting, like, hearing what the royals have been up to in quarantine. I feel like this is the perfect kind of fodder for you and I.
Yeah.
So let's take it from the top as usual. The Queen and Prince Philip are reportedly in self-isolation together in Windsor Castle with just 8 staff members, not including the people working in the stables.
They must be so lonely.
And they have been watching a lot of TV, according to the Daily Mail. What are they watching on TV?
I mean, they're definitely not catching up on The Crown.
Are they watching Tiger King? When she has not been binging Tiger King, the Queen has been talking to Boris Johnson on the phone. We got a great photo from the royal family Instagram account, basically delivered in like meme format. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. The split screen with the Queen on top in Windsor Castle and Boris, like God knows where, on the phone on the bottom. The Queen was in one of her private sitting rooms at Windsor Castle, and this gave us a rare glimpse inside this private space.
The inner sanctum.
And I thought the styling of this room was fascinating. I mean, I don't know if it always looks like this, but clearly they picked this room for a reason for the photo. What stood out to you the most from this pic?
It's difficult to pick any one thing. I mean, the phone itself was very prominent, but I did really appreciate the, not 1, not 2, but 3 corgi ornaments. Like, perfect, like, old lady tat.
There was so much old lady tat. It seemed to fall into 3 categories of either corgis, horses, or the armed forces. The corgi one, so we had a sort of giant China corgi glaring down on 2 silver corgis on a slate block with a plaque on it, which suggests that maybe she received it as a sort of gift from someone. We don't know who. Then there were myriad horse figurines everywhere.
Which makes a lot of sense for her. She loves her horses.
Big time. And there are many horses at Windsor. As well as that, there were a number of military statuettes of her guards looking down on her. Of course, there was the fucking rotary dial phone. Like, Oh my God. I mean, if there was anything that emphasized this sort of obsolete nature of the monarchy, it was this archaic telephone, a fucking dial phone that the Queen doesn't even dial herself. She picks up the handle and she's got an operator to connect her. Like, talk about a relic from the past.
Her iOS is a little human being.
Then the antique Wedgwood cabbage leaf bowl and plate. Very rustic, country kind of interior vibe. And, of course, over her shoulder, we got a glimpse of what is believed to be a CD rack. Oh, my God.
I'm surprised she doesn't just call someone up and then they call the band and they play it down the phone to her.
All of it together, I thought, was such a, portrait of a country woman.
Yeah.
This whole tableau was so evocative of a certain class and a certain age and a certain position that I guess for some people that would really emphasize her experience and her steady leadership. But for me, it was really emphasizing a woman out of time, despite the fact that she has 800 timepieces in her collection.
So you don't agree with Richard Kay for the Daily Mail, who said, at a time of national emergency, it is hard to think of a more reassuring image.
The people that work in the palace look at that and say, mission accomplished, that's exactly what we wanted. Yeah. That's what we want every person in the country to be thinking. And maybe for people over a certain age, they feel that way. For me, not so much.
No way. I mean, the best thing about it was the fact that it was like a meme.
As for Charles, we got a little update on what he's been up to in self-isolation from Katie Nicholl at Vanity Fair. While the Queen's got 8 people working for her, Charles has just 2 staff members.
He's all about the streamlining.
A personal assistant and a chef. He is in complete isolation at Burke Hall, where he is sleeping and living separately from Camilla. She's also there, but
they are isolating from each other.
So, this source told Katie Nicholl, the food is taken to the door. The staff member retreats and the prince takes his meal. The door is then shut and remains shut.
So this is 100% like an offering to a monster in order to stop it from eating like 10 girls and 10 boys from the village every year.
Well, at least Charles is allowed outside to exercise once a day, and he's got massive gardens at Burke Hall where he can do his little walk. But the main message they really want to emphasise from another source is that the prince might be in isolation, but he is not isolated. He is very busy and very much keeping abreast of what is happening. He is taking calls, having online meetings, and working as hard as ever. So, Will, calm down, get off your high horse, because he's not dead yet, and he's still going to be king someday, and don't you forget it. I thought this was a wild message.
Like, he should be having a rest, taking it easy.
You're 71, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be making calls to the chief executive of the World Economic Forum right now.
Yeah, like, no offence, but they probably have more important things to be doing than talking to you right now.
I just don't understand why there's so much emphasis on him working from home. Everybody knows that, yes, the royals may do a certain amount of work, but it is not essential work, especially not right now. You do not need to be doing this when you've got coronavirus and you're 71. Just go to bed. While he's not talking to the chief executive of the World Economic Forum, though, Charles has been entertaining some other visitors.
This is amazing. So a source told the Daily Mail that Charles has been enjoying visits from red squirrels. The prince keeps nuts on his desk and likes to feed the red squirrels who come up to see him. He's keeping well, and this connection to nature is a great source of comfort to him. So he's like gone full Disney princess.
This is his Snow White.
Once they've eaten the nuts, they help tailor a suit for his afternoon walk.
And then worlds away from this connection to nature is Camilla's connection to her smartphone.
Yeah, she clearly got rid of this operator-run rotary phone as soon as possible.
And installed Houseparty. And now she's addicted to Houseparty. They had a brilliant story in the Daily Mail about how much Camilla loves Houseparty. She told a friend, "It's amazing. I just press a button and all my family pop up." And to illustrate this, the Mail gave us this terrific graphic of what Camilla's Houseparty app might look like.
And, I mean, we'll share it on our Instagram because it's, like, so good. It really has to be seen to be believed. But the way the contacts are put in is really wild. Like, Charles is in as HRH Prince of Wales.
And you've got Kate and Will as the Duchess of Cambridge and the Duke of Cambridge. And then down at the bottom in a section, people you may know, you have Harry and Meghan. Oh, so shady. They never stop, do they?
But the good news is that Palace source told People magazine both of them, as in Charles and Camilla, remain in good spirits. There is a sense of keeping calm and carrying on. The Duchess is concerned for him, but she is aware of his own good spirits, and therefore is keeping a close eye on him and mindful of her own situation. She is upbeat. She's having a great time. She's got her phone, she can presumably watch whatever she wants on telly. She doesn't have to watch, like, boring documentaries about the Duchy anymore.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny.
She's not being constantly bothered by squirrels. There has been some controversy, though, over Charles and Camilla relocating to Birk Hall in Scotland. People in Scotland are really annoyed that he got a test when so many of the NHS workers and social care workers haven't been able to get a test yet. And Catherine Calderwood, the Chief Medical Officer for Scotland, told The Times, "I've discussed the issue with the team in NHS Grampian, and from the information I've been given, it's clear he was tested for clinical reasons."
They also had the Health Minister, Edward Argar, talking to Sky News. "The Prince of Wales didn't jump the queue. We are focused on making sure that we ramp up those tests around the country for our frontline workers. But my understanding is that his symptoms, his condition met that criteria." That was so unusual that they had two high-profile people coming out in defence of Charles getting a test.
It seems kind of unnecessary. I mean, as we said, like, he is a prince, so he's going to get a test. It doesn't really matter.
But he's also 71
exactly.
And he had symptoms.
Yeah,
so.
He also does qualify for it. Clearly, they're very worried about the image of the royal family on all fronts at the moment, and this is just one area where they wanted to try and really knock all that on the head.
I think the test controversy is a little bit separate from Charles blatantly flouting government advice.
Yeah.
We've heard confusing stories about when Charles started to display symptoms. The Times had royal sources saying that he was already displaying mild symptoms by the weekend of March 13th. They said his symptoms were not sufficiently pronounced to reconsider plans to travel. All actions were taken in conjunction with medical advice. So on the 13th of March, they left London for Highgrove, which was the same day that the government issued advice that people should not travel to second homes, especially in rural areas. So the very same day, Charles says, "Meh, not for me," and off he goes. Then a week ago, last Sunday, they moved again and flew to Scotland this time, which was nearly a week after Boris had told people not to leave their homes for 14 days if they have a new persistent cough or fever. We saw a column in the Daily Record, which is a Scottish tabloid newspaper, calling him utterly reckless and selfish for travelling against government advice. And a politician, Joan McAlpine, the SNP MSP for the south of Scotland, telling The Times, second homers and tourists were being urged not to travel to rural areas, including the Highlands, as it simply spreads the virus. Presumably Charles thought those rules did not apply to him.
And this led to #AbolishTheMonarchy trending on Twitter.
Always love when I see that.
Yeah,
tag trending.
And sometimes when we look at it, we think, is that just trending for us because of our own interests? But it was pretty big. It was, like you said, it was very much linked to the fact that Charles was flouting this government advice. And it's not only flouting government advice, but there's like very real implications for his actions. Like he is actively helping spread coronavirus if he is travelling with symptoms. So that poses a very real threat to people in rural areas that might have, avoided the virus for longer.
And we talked about this last week about how this period might be a time when people start to reassess how they feel about the monarchy. The reaction to Charles getting tested and also travelling against government advice illustrates that people may be starting to do that kind of reassessment.
Yeah.
Or it might just be the same group of anti-monarchists on Twitter who are making this hashtag trend. But, you know, it has yet to be seen.
Yeah. But onto the younger royals. We've seen very different treatment of Will and Harry's response to the coronavirus. Shall we start with the next in line to the throne, Will?
Yeah, I can't believe we missed this little comment from Will that he made at the visit to the call centre last week. But as they were leaving, Will was, according to the Mirror, trying to soften the mood. So he thanked the staff and said, "I think we're all going to have a lot of TV to watch in the next few weeks." Which, oh my God, like,
Jesus.
talk about, like, face palm.
I know. Like,
Oh,
lead balloon. I mean, these are the exact people who are not going to have a chance to watch TV over the next few weeks. They're going to be working harder than ever.
it's so disappointing, you know, to have heard that this was a boost to morale and that people were really pleased to see them. That feels like such a careless comment to make as you're leaving, when the whole point of your visit is to recognize the huge workload and the amount of hours that these people have been putting in at the call center, and then you say, right, I'm off to catch up on all the box sets I've missed out on. Yikes. Otherwise, though, Will and Kate have continued to enjoy a lot of praise for that visit. However, they have now retreated to Anmore Hall, their home in Norfolk. We saw some excellent social media work from Kensington Royal this week. I'm sure you've all seen the adorable video of Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis applauding the NHS workers. This was part of the Clap for Our Carers campaign, which is such a hilariously poorly titled campaign. The very last thing they need. But we saw George, Charlotte and Louis all dressed in shades of blue, the colour of the NHS. Kate had dressed Charlotte in a sort of mini Kate costume and Louis in a sort of mini Will costume. You might have seen those side-by-side images showing Louis and Will wearing the same outfit and Kate and Charlotte wearing versions of the same outfit. Anyway, George, I thought, looked like he was pretty ready to pack it all in from the moment the video started.
Yeah, but
sorry,
it's not on the cards for him.
Our little bloke Louis was the hero, the star of the video, though.
Oh yeah, of course. He always is at anything that he's part of. Looking
to George and Charlotte for guidance on what he's meant to be doing. It was very cute. But I could not believe the quality of this video. It was shocking. It was so bad. It's like, was this filmed on like a fucking iPhone 3? I kept waiting for I thought like my internet wasn't loading. Like, why is this so blurry? It meant that the Daily Mail had to get their photo team on some intense sharpening work to get a clearer version of this picture, which was honestly very creepy in the final result. But, you know, this is exactly the kind of content that we want from Will and Kate. It is really sweet. It's very relatable. You know, we were all clapping out of our windows and doors on Thursday. It was a sort of heartwarming moment. And at the same time, it was them showing leadership in a modern and switched on kind of way, and also in a very hands-off kind of way, not coming into contact with any first responders. We should also mention that there was an incredible...
Even better than the kids, oh my god.
Incredible social media post from Clarence House on Instagram stories. I'm so disappointed this wasn't a main feed post because it was iconic, of Charles and Camilla clapping for the NHS.
But they were isolated and each had their own separate video that were then cropped together.
Oh my god. So you had Camilla framed in the window, this very poignant shot of Camilla looking out the window and clapping, and then Charles in what looked like a tweed suit.
That's what we're all wearing to work from home in the UK, in case you were wondering.
Clapping in his house next to each other, but so far apart.
Oh. Very moving. The Queen is also believed to have applauded, according to the Telegraph. But again, we've not had any footage of the Queen for a very long time now.
So earlier that day, on Thursday, Kensington Royal again surged ahead of Sussex Royal with 11.4 million Instagram followers. Thought it was unusual that happened before they posted this nice video. But anyway. And on Saturday, we got another couple of pictures of Will and Kate's working from home outfits.
This was Kate back in her pink M&S suit, which makes me think that maybe the photo was taken last week on the same day as the call centre visit. But she also had a row of Penguin Classics on her desk, which we went through and tried to identify.
I love this. I saw people on social media talking about that they were going to buy these books because Kate had the books. I love that.
Because Dickens needs the money.
Well, you know, this kind of book influencer. It's not something we've seen from Kate before. But yes, Tom and I did a close read of the books on the desk, try to figure out what they were. So if you guys similarly want to pick up these books because Kate has them, I cannot ascertain whether she has read these books. So I'm going to run them through, and Tom, you can tell me whether you think Kate has read them. Starting with Bleak House.
No. Too long.
Have you read Bleak House?
I have, yeah. I had to read it in school. Sorry, Kate, but if you need a synopsis, you'll have to come to me.
Okay, Middlemarch.
No, again, too long. I didn't make it through that one either.
Okay, Northanger Abbey.
Yes, short, quite gothic-y, exciting.
Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah, again, I think she would probably have read the Austens. I think like once you move into a palace and you've got not much to do, you probably read a lot of Austen.
Or watch the BBC adaptations.
Yeah.
A Christmas Carol, that's a definite. Right?
Oh yeah, I'd say she may
Every
even
year.
have read that out loud to the kids.
Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah, maybe when they got Lupo.
Oh. Now I wonder if this one was a gift, Tom. Shakespeare's sonnets.
I think that she maybe bought it herself actually and was hoping that Will would read some to her.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
Is that every woman's fantasy? Let us know.
Prince William reading sonnets to you.
Prince William, meanwhile, did not have any reading materials that we could see.
But he had a fucking massive printer. This photo was so funny because the printer was the main focus.
It was so weird the way they posted. They shared the picture of Will first in the carousel.
Big mistake.
Huge mistake. Kate looks amazing. Lively picture, lots of colour. Then this dud pic of Will, taken from not a flattering angle, not the most forgiving picture of him with his blank desk, and he's being overshadowed by a huge printer. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed with Sussex Royal's post about the clap for our carers.
Yeah.
Because they did share last week a post telling people about the campaign and encouraging people to do it. And then they couldn't even be bothered to do it.
I mean, we do know that they are in a situation where they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. Like, if they had shared a video, would they have been accused of trying to steal spotlight from royal children?
I mean, given that Charles and Camilla did it as well, I think it was meant to be a sort of collective effort.
Yeah.
However, from Harry and Meghan, we just got a text post on stories, black background with clapping emojis saying thank you for all that you continue to do, applauding you from across the pond. And I'm just saying I would have loved to see one or both of them clapping. Yeah.
It sort of struck me as a bit like one of them realising what time it was, given working out the time difference and being like, oh shit, we need to post something now. What can we do? But in other Instagram activity, Sussex Royal shared recommendations from the World Health Organization and wrote in the caption, "For all of us, the best way we can support health workers is to make sure we do not make their job any harder by spreading this disease further."
Well, Tom, do you think, as some royal watchers did, do you think this might be a little dig at Will and Kate's visit to the call centre?
I think it could be a dig at that. I think it could be a dig at Charles travelling to everywhere he can in the fucking country with symptoms. I agree with their advice, and I do think that it's worth pointing out to some of the other members of the family. But the Mail had an exclusive story this week saying that Meghan lays down the law and forbids Harry from going back to UK to see coronavirus-infected Prince Charles as she makes plans to foster a black lab named Cole to help ease the strain on animal shelters. This is a classic double headline.
But there is a function here. Tom, obviously, you're meant to think she cares more about this old stray named Cole than her husband's own father.
Unfortunately for the Mail, she is complying with the generally accepted advice on, like, not unnecessarily travelling, and especially not travelling to see people who are infected with the disease.
Which the Mail is aware of because they have been calling out celebrities who have been travelling, like Nicole Scherzinger, for example. Sorry to single her out, but
we just had to react.
She flew out of London, and the Mail had a story about it which mentioned that she was travelling despite the Foreign and Commonwealth Office advising all non-essential travel abroad should be avoided until at least April 15th.
They also had a story about how Meghan was making her staff wear masks and leave their shoes and coats outside their waterfront Vancouver Island mansion, which is something you have to say in its entirety every single time. But we also found out that they're not in Vancouver anymore.
The very same day we heard about these new mask guidelines, People magazine broke the story that Harry and Meghan are actually not living in Vancouver anymore. They are now living in Los Angeles. They didn't have much detail about it, but they did say that they have been living in a secluded compound and haven't ventured out amid the coronavirus pandemic.
This was such a surprising announcement.
Yeah, such weird timing. It was just after the Clap for Our Carers was going on, and the Cambridges had posted that nice video of the kids, and they were getting such good press for that. Lainey Gossip pointed out that this announcement came just hours after the news about Meghan's Disney documentary that she was doing the voiceover for, Elephant, which is coming out next week. And Lainey suggested that maybe this might be sort of leading up to a bigger rollout or another reveal of more work in Hollywood or some other kind of deal with Disney for Meghan.
Right.
But I just have to wonder if they maybe overplayed their hand, or...
It seems like maybe they were kind of eager to show up the inaccuracies in that Daily Mail story about them being in Vancouver Island, that they wanted to show that if they can't even get the location right, that there's other things that you should be questioning. But in doing that, they maybe didn't think through the kind of other possible fallout.
It just seems like quite a blinkered viewpoint, because now the message is like the Cambridges support the NHS, Prince Charles has coronavirus, and Harry and Meghan go Hollywood. And it's obviously not been well received here, but also it just really sits uneasily with the other stuff that's going on with the family. The day after this People exclusive, The Sun had an exclusive from Dan Wootton that said the reason Harry and Meghan have moved to Los Angeles is to avoid paying tax in America and Canada. The Express said that the move was accelerated by Canadian government refusing to pay the security costs. The most notable one, I think, was the Telegraph piece, which suggested that basically Canada was always just a stopgap in the plan, and they had always intended to go to America.
Which is, you know, something that had been floated a lot during their time in Canada, I thought. So the Telegraph said, the move has not only left their nearest and dearest stunned and horrified, having thought they might return with Archie to be with their relatives during the global pandemic, Canadians are also up in arms, accusing them of using the Commonwealth country as a smokescreen for their long-planned assault on America. Some are now starting to question whether they ever had any intention of supporting Queen and Commonwealth, or always had their sights firmly fixed on Hollywood.
This made me so irritated. It's like they completely forget that Doria Ragland exists.
Yeah.
All of this stuff about being with their relatives during a pandemic. Meghan's mother lives in Los Angeles. Obviously, we know that nobody should be with anybody right now. You're meant to be in isolation. So the idea that you're moving to be, like, to spend time with somebody is ill-advised. But this narrative that they if they are going to move, they should be with Harry's family over Meghan's is so infuriating.
The same piece from the Telegraph also appears to criticise Harry for postponing the Invictus Games, while Will was busy making a real difference going to the call centre.
Oh, this was wild. Like, it illustrates what you were saying last week about this very British attitude to a crisis. So Camilla Tominey writes, as a former army captain who revels in rolling up his sleeves in a crisis, the outbreak would have provided Harry with the perfect opportunity to do what he does best, geeing up the public in the face of adversity. Remember the flood relief efforts in 2014 when the royal brothers donned waterproofs and waders to help the household cavalry unload sandbags from military trucks? Not the same thing.
Not the same thing at all. I mean, Will and Harry, being in the armed forces, would have been trained in how to build walls out of sandbags, so they're useful in that situation. This is not the same situation at all. I said it last week, but, you know, having the royals go somewhere where people are trying to do very important work combating the coronavirus is a distraction and should not happen.
It's so weird that they seem to think, oh, Harry would have, of course he'd be mucking in. Like, this isn't a situation where you muck in.
No.
You stay home and stay out of it. She's criticising him, saying that instead, the royal, who twice fought for Queen and country in Afghanistan, has been reduced to sharing the World Health Organization's online advice and inviting fans to share their feelings via a rather trite "Today I Feel" Instagram post. Even though now, that's basically what Will and Kate have been reduced to doing.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying with deep sarcasm, because I believe that's an insane thing to criticise someone for doing when that is kind of the most they can do right now.
It's definitely, in my opinion, the best use of their time for all of the royals is to talk about the importance of mental health, because they have experience in it, and, you know, it's an area where they have the least risk of giving the wrong advice.
This week we also asked you guys to send us any questions you might have or that you would like us to talk about. We've touched on some of these already, but there are a few outstanding ones that we thought we'd just quickly run through. So one of them that I particularly liked was a listener asked, what were you taught about the UK in history at school?
So we'll probably have very different answers to this. So in the UK, you get taught a lot about the Tudors over and over again up until a certain age, and then around GCSE, which is the exams you take when you're 16 years old, they go really hard on World War II. And then it's only if you go to A-level, which is the exams at 18 years old, that you kind of look at other aspects of British history, such as the Troubles in Northern Ireland. But there's generally very little taught about the UK as a colonising force. They kind of talk about the British Empire whilst really eliding over the truly horrific details that went into building that empire. And of course, not everyone takes history at A-level, so a lot of people will only go up to GCSE level. The UK, I have found, is like really obsessed with World War II. It's one of the few examples, I think, of the British being on the right side of a war. And it's one of those things which allows people to forget, or perhaps never even learn, that it was the British Army that pioneered the concentration camps in the Boer War. So the short answer is that British schools don't really teach the evils perpetrated by the British Empire.
Irish schools do. In history, that's definitely as big of a segment in the curriculum as any of the wars or ancient Rome or any period in history. You do a whole segment, you know, you watch The Wind That Shakes the Barley. It's a whole thing. Basically every year you learn something new about the atrocities of the Brits.
I only really learned about that history when I moved to Ireland to study, and then I learned about it from like talking to people rather than it being on any syllabus that I had studied.
When I sat Tom down on a first date and delivered my sermon on the evils of the British Empire.
And I was smitten.
Speaking of Ireland, we were also asked how would we compare the tours by the Sussexes and the Cambridges to Ireland. So you probably remember Harry and Meghan visited Dublin in 2018 for 2 days. Very short tour. This was their first foreign trip since their wedding. So it was a big like deal, and they were calling it like their mini moon. And I remember we had like lots of stories about Harry and Meghan's Irish mini moon. Then obviously Will and Kate visited for the first time earlier this month for 3 days. Again, very short. But both times it was billed as this kind of Brexit charm offensive, and it was meant to be highlighting the special bond between the UK and its closest, most important neighbour in Ireland. But just to kind of go through some of the things that we talked about with Will and Kate and how Harry and Meghan did it, I thought might be, I don't know, illuminating. When Harry and Meghan came, they arrived at Dublin Airport. They did not fly commercial. They did not fly with Aer Lingus. They flew private. So they arrived in a private jet, and like Will and Kate, they wore green, although in a rather different way. You might remember this was when Meghan wore that dark forest green Givenchy pencil skirt and the short-sleeved blouse top with tan little pumps and a Strathbury bag. Love that bag, gorgeous bag, and a very sleek little bun. And Harry had a navy suit and a green tie. Fortunately, his green tie did not match the outfit that Meghan was wearing all that well, but
they were still learning, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of a more refined take on the Paddy's Day.
Like Paddy's Day mass.
There were a lot of similarities in their itineraries, so they both hung out with the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar.
He loves meeting the young royals.
I really liked, you may not have seen this before, Tom, but when Harry and Meghan visited government buildings, they were greeted with a table laid out with 14 bottles of Ballygowan water.
What a gift!
Which seems like they were preparing for a much bigger entourage, maybe. Then they both visited the President, Michael D. Higgins, and his wife Sabina at Áras an Uachtaráin. They met Brod and Shoda, the first dogs of Ireland. They both rang the peace bell. They both signed the visitors book at government buildings. And they both met Sinead Burke, the fashion writer and disability activist, at evening receptions in Dublin. So
very matchy so far.
At the reception that Harry and Meghan had, they kind of specifically handpicked the guests that were invited, which included Vicky Phelan, who is a campaigner. She's a woman and mother from Limerick. She's the one who exposed the cervical check cancer controversy, and she said she was very surprised that Meghan knew so much about her campaign and about her history, and said she'd been following her very closely. So that seems like a very kind of Meghan moment.
Yeah.
Nice little touching moment.
To compare the different tourist destinations, when Kate and Will went to the Guinness Storehouse for a couple of pints, Harry and Meghan checked out the Book of Kells at Trinity College. And while Will and Kate went to the Garden of Remembrance, Harry and Meghan visited the Famine Memorial.
That's the sort of somber moment for each.
Will and Kate played hurling, and Harry and Meghan toured Croke Park Museum and met some young GAA players.
Yeah, so Meghan did hold a hurl and a slitter, but she did not activate them. Is that the term?
You know so much about sports.
I thought this was her best outfit, but it was so unsporty.
Yeah.
She was wearing like heels on the pitch, and she had like this suit, this really gorgeous black Givenchy suit, and it was a fabulous outfit, but absolutely not an athletic one at all.
She knows her strengths, I think.
They both met groups of young people. We saw Will and Kate at the Youth Mental Health Charity Jigsaw, and Harry and Meghan met a bunch of young digital natives at the startup hub in the Docklands.
That's so Meghan.
I thought there were a few kind of key like distinctions that people might be interested in. Obviously, Kate wore that whole tricolour cosplay wardrobe. Yeah. Meghan just wore the one Irish green outfit on Arrival. Meghan was criticised for not wearing any Irish designers at all. She mostly wore Givenchy. She had 2 Givenchy outfits, then Amelia Wickstead and a Rula Moray dress as well. But her wardrobe is said to have cost an estimated £30,000 for 2 days, which was pretty intense compared to Kate's £26,000. And as we know, like £17,000, that was one pair of earrings. So, as well as that, Harry and Meghan received a lot of criticism for their press arrangements. I mean, this is not news to anybody. We know they have a difficult relationship with the press, but they were criticised by a number of international press outlets for poor scheduling and poor communications with those same international press outlets, while William and Kate were praised for having very clear communication with the media. As well as that, William and Kate, given that they had 3 days, they had more time and they travelled outside of Dublin while Harry and Meghan just stayed around Dublin. William and Kate went to Kildare and Meath and Galway, so they got a bit further out and about.
Off the beaten track.
Exactly, Tom. But speaking about off the beaten track, my favourite moment from when Harry and Meghan visited was that they went and had lunch at Delahunt, a fabulous restaurant in Dublin where we went for my birthday. And it was delicious.
It was really, really good.
That was such a Meghan-ish moment.
Yeah.
You know, I know Meghan has been to Dublin a few times and she has done the whole Guinness, like the touristy stuff, and maybe she's done Book of Kells before.
I mean, she's from California. Of course she has.
She's done all the American tourist hotspots.
Somewhere there is a photo of her in one of those foam Guinness pint hats. I know it.
Yeah, but I did think that was like a nice sort of Tiggish, Meghan-ish break from all the really diddly-eye Irish kind of stuff on the itinerary.
Delahunt was pretty new at that point as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, very new. Will and Harry both gave quite similar speeches highlighting the relationship between Ireland and the UK, but while, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Will quoted the Queen's speech when she was over in 2011, Harry quoted Michael D, which was a very nice move, I thought. He said, "I will finish by drawing on the words of President Higgins during his extraordinarily successful visit to the UK in 2014, like ours, which we still remember with admiration. He quoted the traditional Irish saying, Er Sca Céile a Bhuir Nadina. We live in each other's shadows. We shield each other and rely on each other for shelter. That sentiment is as apt now as it was then, as we draw strength from one another as neighbours, partners, and above all, friends." Which I think is a nice move to let the Irish part of the relationship to represent that perspective rather than that of our British overlords. He also said, and what I thought was like reads quite poignant now, that we're so pleased to be here for our first official international visit together as a married couple, and we hope it will be the first of many.
Not to be.
But he did talk about, because Charles had just been over recently to Cork before Harry and Meghan, and he said, "I'm glad to hear he didn't bore you to tears."
I feel like he said that so many times.
There is kind of like a shadow over that trip now, though, because when Harry and Meghan launched their Sussex Royal website, you might remember they have like a section on it about strengthening the Commonwealth or supporting the Commonwealth or something like that. And they include their trip to Ireland, or they had included it. I think it's been taken down now. But they had mentioned their trip to Ireland as an example of their Commonwealth work and seemed to suggest that Ireland was part of the Commonwealth, which is a glaring error and one that Irish people were really angry about. And seemed like a very stupid mistake.
Yeah. So,
unfortunately, that kind of put a dampener on the Sussex tour.
Yeah, but Delahunt is really, really delicious. So, I want to know, Maeve, what your quote of the week is, because we've been a little bit light on quotes.
I mean, we've heard a lot of criticism about Harry and Meghan's Insta quotes and how they're gobbledygook.
Word salad.
But I want you to tell me, like, please explain these words of wisdom from Sarah Ferguson in an Instagram caption for a photo, this amazingly cropped photo of a white horse. She writes, "Hold with golden-hearted strength and keep focused on small steps to victory. To reach the summit, it takes many steps through many valleys, perseverance and patience, and you will get there. The light would not be so bright without the shadow."
And that's actually the opening sentence from Budgie the Little Helicopter.
I just love this combination of bizarre, meaningless words with a bizarre, meaningless picture of a horse with like part of its ears and tails cropped out of the photo. It's just, you know, you can rely on Fergie for this kind of stuff, can't you?
Yeah. And what about Fit for a Queen?
Well, it's got to be the top dog this week, the head bitch in charge, the Queen, giving us serious working from home vibes in that picture of her on the phone to Boris Johnson, accessorized with the rotary dial phone. She was wearing a little lilac cardigan with a matching purple blouse and checked skirt.
And she accessorized it with a red lipstick, a racy red.
Oh my God. For all those of us who can't even be bothered to put on a bra working from home, she's got the full face on, even with the lips.
I really liked the cardigan. I thought it was a great colour.
It was an unexpected fashion moment in this week. What about first in line? Who is isolating best?
It's got to be Camilla, my isolation queen. I was obsessed with her this week. Obsessed with her clapping from her window. Obsessed with her on Houseparty. She is doing it the same as the rest of us, albeit in a slightly bigger house.
Yeah, she's looking out for her own safety. She's not taking any risks. She's practicing social distancing from her own husband.
And watching a lot of TV.
Which we will be doing this week.
Oh yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, we cannot wait. On Friday, Disney Plus will be launching Elephant, their new documentary narrated by Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
Sorry, Maeve, I think you meant to say on Friday, Disney Plus will crash.
We cannot wait to watch this documentary. You may remember this is the one where Meghan donated her proceeds to Elephants Without Borders. This is hopefully the beginning of a long relationship with Disney for Meghan, and we will be sharing all of our thoughts on the elephants and the voice of Meghan next
I can't
week.
wait to have that elephant in the room. We'll also be taking that time to look back on Harry and Meghan's time as working royals.
Mostly Meghan.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, the 31st of March, will be their final day. That's when they will be stepping down as senior working royals. And we are going to look back through some of our favourite moments that we didn't get to talk about. So like from before we had the podcast.
If you can remember such a time.
If there's any of those kind of stupid smaller stories that you would like us to address, please send them on. You can contact us on our new website. Tom has designed a lovely website for us. You can find us on airheads.co.uk, where you can download our quiz, the Quarren Queen quiz, to take at home alone or with friends and family.
Over Houseparty, perhaps, with Camilla. And yeah, you can also send us an email at airheadspod@gmail.com.
We have got our Princess Beatrice wedding dress board is on fire on Pinterest. We've been loving all the suggestions you guys have been sending us. They're so good. So you can check us out on Pinterest. Airheadspod is our name there. And find us on Instagram and Twitter at airheadspod, and on Facebook at airheads.
We've really loved all the lovely reviews people have been leaving over the last couple of weeks. So if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review and tell a friend.
Thank you so much for listening. And until next week, please stay safe.
Stay inside, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
You don't gotta go to work, but you gotta put in work.